Hello everyone, Thranks is here, and today we're gonna be talking about how to make money and nanites in No Man's Sky. Alright, today we're gonna be taking another break from our Let's Play No Man's Sky series to talk a little bit about how to actually progress in the game. So if you're here from the last video, or you already know what path you want to take as far as long-term goals in the game to get started, then you're likely at a point now where you merely need to actually make the progress. Now, a lot of times, this progress will come down to three very specific things. In this particular order, you will need money, called units, nanites, and salvage technology, buried underground. Now, salvage technology, generally, is found just about everywhere. All you have to do is dig for it. So as long as you make sure to take your time and stop every time you pass over buried technology, you'll eventually get what you need. There's really not much of a point to talk about it any further, as it's going to be one of the easiest resources to get. Now, first up, as far as your big priority should be, is money. The currency of No Man's Sky is known as units, and it is by far the most important resource you can get in the early game. It's going to afford you the ability to purchase new ships, new multi-tools, quality of life items from traders, the list goes on. And if you happen to be playing on survival or even permadeath, then your need for money goes up even more in the early game. Many times it's worthwhile just to sell the things you find and get the money that way. But in case you need lots of money quickly because you want to escape the early game, there's a few different ways that you can do this. The first way to earn money, that's probably the easiest and most reliable, is to look for a planet that lists ancient bones as one of the resources obtainable at it after you scan it. Once you get planet side somewhere where ancient bones are listed, you'll notice that there are yellow indicators called natural burial sites that look a lot like the buried technology. Now, these tend to occur in clusters, and really all you have to do is burrow down and pick them up. They're found in three possible rarities: blue, purple, and gold, gold being the most rare. Gold rarity items are priced anywhere between 1 to 2 million units. Purple comes in at anywhere from 250,000 to 900,000, and blue tend to be anywhere from 50,000 to 250,000 units apiece. Now, this grind is very easy, but can also be a little daunting. The pros are that it's very easy to achieve, even on higher difficulty settings. The con would be that you have to locate a planet that has the ancient burial sites first, which of course means that it may or may not even be an option for you. Similarly to this technique, if you're able to find a planet that mentions salvageable scrap in its list of resources, you'll find they're marked in the ground with similar yellow markers and also buried under the terrain. One of the key differences between salvageable scrap and buried bones is that salvageable scrap has a chance to summon corrupted sentinels. So depending on your shields and weapon setup, you might not be ready in the very early game to take them on. If you're playing on permadeath, this can be especially dicey before you get a reasonable weapon at your command. That being said, salvageable scrap does tend to be more valuable by about 50% over buried bones, so if you are able to defeat a few corrupted sentinels, you can usually get a pretty good payday. The third most efficient way to get money is perhaps a little slower, but uniquely available anywhere. Simply swing by your local cartographer and make sure you pick up some alien cartographic data. Or if you're far enough into the game to have an exploration frigate in your fleet, simply head over to them and land on the landing pad available, and you'll be able to interface with the crew, which will conduct a planetary scan for alien ruins. Once your scan is performed, you should have the location, either from your cartographic data or from your exploration frigate, of ruins on a nearby planet. These ruins can come with some lore or language, but if they are ruins containing treasure, you'll be able to extract the treasure and obtain a payday. Just keep in mind, if you found the ruins that have lore and language available to them, you'll have to select that you would like historical data revealed to you after you're done interfacing with the monolith. Otherwise, if you find ruins that have artifact fragments underground that yield ancient keys, you simply need to excavate enough to get 3 of them, and then collect the reward at the center at the end. I particularly like this method of earning money because even though it's not the fastest, it encourages you to learn the lore and the language of the alien species of No Man's Sky along the way. The fourth method we're going to talk about is maybe a little more dangerous, but it can yield tremendous amounts of money in a very short amount of time, and that is hunting storm crystals. All you need to do is to find a planet with extreme storms, generally listed to have an activated chromatic metal such as activated copper, and then have enough ion batteries on hand to keep your hazard protection charged while you go from location to location. You can also use abundant sodium on the planet, if it is abundant enough, to get from storm crystal to storm crystal. Again, this is something that will get you a lot of money very quickly, as each storm crystal tends to be about 160,000 units apiece, and they can appear in clusters from anywhere to 2 to 5. But again, you will have to hang out on an extreme planet. If you add dangerous sentinels or predators, this might not be an early game option on permadeath or survival settings. The last method of earning units in the early game we're going to talk about is upgrading your scanner. Purchasing S-Class modules for scanner upgrades from space stations yield a tremendous amount of increased money earned while scanning plants and animals. Plants generally will net you from 60 to 90,000 units, while animals will get you anywhere from 200 to 300,000 units. The thing to keep in mind with this method is that you'll need a multi-tool worth upgrading and just shy of 1,500 nanites to purchase the modules. Once you get to the mid-game, one of the easiest ways to get money by far is to create an industrious base that harvests activated metals. These can get you tremendous amounts of money over just a few days and tend to work in the background as long as you have the blueprints for it. The most lucrative of the industrial bases would be, of course, activated indium. This base established on a blue stellar solar system on a planet that features extreme weather and activated chromatic metal. As you can see here, this system holds about 200,000 activated indium, which sells for just over 200 million units. This particular base refills every 20 hours. One of the things that I've done is actually shared the coordinates of this base with the rest of the community. So if you're in the middle game and you have all the glyphs that you need to portal travel, I'm going to give you the coordinates for this base right here. Consider it my gift to give you a nice head start at 200 million units and a reward for achieving all your glyphs. Let's say building a mining base isn't for you though. You're in the mid-game and you don't want to go and get a handout. Well, you can make your own goods. By picking up a secure site of interest off of secret cartographic data from your planetary chart vendor in space stations, they will potentially give you the location of a manufacturing facility when used. If you get an operations center, just know that it's not quite going to be the same, so you may have to use more than one chart to get what you're looking for. Once you arrive at the manufacturing facility, you're going to have a few different challenges available to you. I personally like this method of money generation because I would rather do something challenging, even if it's not as time efficient as some of the easier methods. One thing is you're going to need to be able to defeat the sentinels out front, or at least destroy the main door so that you can break in. Once you get through the door, you're going to be posed with a challenge that's going to require you to basically flex your knowledge of the local alien lexicon. How many words you have translated can be a big factor in deciding which option to select. But as long as you're able to locate a facility, break in the front door, and then understand the message being transmitted to you while the alarm is going off, you will in fact be able to unlock new manufacturing recipes. From this recipe list, you can see the most valuable pieces on the right: the portable reactor, quantum processor, fusion igniter, and stasis device, as well as the cryogenic chamber. These, however, are going to require large amounts of processing materials that come from the other side of the chart. In effect, you'll need to do manufacturing facilities frequent enough to be able to unlock each and every one of the white shaded patterns to be able to create the most expensive pieces. Fusion igniters and stasis devices go for about the same amount of money, and as you can see, a full stack sells for about 312 million units. The final mid-game money-making endeavor we're going to talk about is trading. Keep in mind, for trading, you're going to need a ship with a large inventory and an economy scanner installed. Extra warp engine upgrades will also help, but aren't 100% necessary. Using your economy scanner, you can scan for a trading post at your local system and look at the goods that are for sale. On each good, they'll give you an indicator showing you the next system that they need to be taken to. Note that it's always important to buy the most expensive trade goods first until you either run out of money or space. Once you have your trade goods loaded on your inventory, head to the galactic map and select your economy filter. On this screen, you'll have every star color-coded to represent what its economy is, and this is where the trade network really begins. There are 7 different class economies, from power generation all the way down to advanced materials. With their colors, they follow 2 distinct loops. Red to orange to yellow to cyan and back to red is one loop. The second one is green to blue to purple and back to green. When trying to establish a trade network, following this cycle of colors will ensure that you never have to have a wasted trip. You'll always be able to pick up the next color's resources at your current destination while selling the ones you're hauling at a profit. The second thing to pay attention to is whether or not the economy is actually high, medium, or low. There's a few different words that describe a high supply economy, but that's really what you're looking for. These words include wealthy, opulent, advanced, affluent, booming, flourishing, prosperous, or high supply. As soon as you find one of these at the color that you're looking for, you simply have to warp to that system, scan for a trading post, head on down, sell your cargo, and resupply with that destination's resources. You always want to look for a trading post in this scenario because they're going to give you the best exchange for money for goods. I almost forgot one thing. Make sure that your trade network isn't just 4 systems doubled back on itself in a circle, because you're going to find really quick that it takes a long time for resources to stock back up after you've bought them all and then delivered them somewhere else. Usually, if you want a fully closed network that doubles back on itself, you're going to need about 15 stops in your trade network. Now we're going to jump over to how to get nanites. So far in this video, we've talked an awful lot about how to get units, and there are a lot of different options and variety of ways to get them. And similarly, there are multiple different ways that you can get nanites in No Man's Sky in the early game, but none of them are as effective as cooking. That's right, we're going to talk about how to turn 200 fungal mold into 5,000 nanites in a relatively short amount of time. So let's get started. To begin this process, you're going to need about 200 fungal mold that you split into 4 groups of 50. If you have 4 nutrient processors, this can go a lot faster, but you're going to process that fungal mold into non-toxic mushrooms. Each batch of 50 is the maximum a nutrient processor can hold. From there, 2 groups of non-toxic mushrooms you process individually into steamed vegetables. The other 2 you process together to make fibrous stew. Take the 2 groups of steamed vegetables, process them together to get flavorsome sauce, and then process the flavorsome sauce and the fibrous stew together, and you get delicious vegetable stew. If you don't have fungal mold or you don't like the fungal mold, you can use selenium, which processes into solartio. Then all the other processing is the same after that. You can use gamma weed, which processes into sivert beans. Or you can even use marrow bulb, which processes into marrow flesh, if you don't want to wait to get the hazard gauntlet to harvest the other plants. This is by far the easiest early game grind for nanites you can go into. Be advised again that the processing will take a bit of time. The more nutrient processors you have processing at once, the more you can get more than a single stack of 50 delicious vegetable stew. Once you have your delicious vegetable stew, as much of it as you're willing to process at a time, you go to the Nexus, head on down to the back right side and find Iteration Kronos. He'll be waiting to eat any food that you bring him, and the delicious vegetable stew actually clocks in at one of the highest rated dishes you can get for the lowest amount of effort put in. Keep in mind, you will have to feed him them one at a time, so it can be a bit tedious, but you should be able to feed him about 50 in 5 minutes, getting you 5,000 nanites. Let's say that grinding process isn't for you though. You would rather earn nanites as you go. One of the best early game ways to earn nanites as you go without grinding is to look for damaged machinery. Indicated by the little gear icon in your scanner, these capsules will usually have junk in them that once removed will give you the contents inside. 9 times out of 10, this will give you a low yield of nanites. Sometimes it gives you launch fuel, but every once in a while it gives you an A or S class technology module. Early game, these can be very beneficial if it's a module you need, and if it's not, you can sell the module to the technology vendors in the space station for about 400 to 500 nanites. Another really great thing about damaged machinery early game, which is why it's good to grind, is because each damaged machinery you find will always have a salvage technology module buried underneath it. As long as you stop every time you see one of these and gather them along your travels in the early game, you should end up with a healthy surplus of nanites without having to specifically grind for them. Another great way to earn nanites as you go in the early game without specifically grinding them is always swing by the Guild Envoy and space stations. They'll offer you a list of quests that usually can yield nanites when completed. Try to take only the scan, kill, or photograph quests, as these are the only ones that won't pull you off of the other things you're doing. And because techniques that earn nanites as you go work best when used in conjunction, don't forget to make stops at the Nexus to swing by Iteration Helios. Iteration Helios will routinely upload your information from planetary scans, giving you a sizable chunk of nanites depending on how many times you've scanned items that he's asking for since your last visit. And since scanning new data is something you should always be doing in No Man's Sky, don't forget to upload all on your Discoveries tab can also net you a sizable chunk of nanites, and if you have the time, locating all of the fauna on a given planet can also add to your numbers. As you begin to approach the mid-game, you might want to start considering derelict freighters. Derelict freighters are an excellent source of nanites among many other things, and they can help break up the monotony of what would otherwise be a steady grind. Derelict freighters are extremely cold and will require at least some level of shield modules and weapons on your multi-tool to complete. The first way you can get nanites is by popping all of the pustules that you see, giving you a healthy stack of living slime by the end of it. Living slime, of course, can be refined into runaway mold, and runaway mold can be refined directly into nanites. Again, it's not incredibly difficult, but it will be cold, and there is the potential of storm-level coldness as well. One of the other things you want to make sure to get while you're inside the derelict freighter are the crew manifest and the captain's log. Both of these items are integral into getting you the nanites that you require at the end. Both are found on computer terminals at various stages of the ship. The final computer terminal that you'll discover also has an option to get nanites if you prefer, anywhere from 400 to 600, but of course, this kind of indicates maybe you don't need the freighter bulkhead, which oftentimes ends up being what people prefer more. Once you're done with the derelict freighter, you come back to the scrap merchant at the local space station, and you can sell them both the crew manifest and the captain's log for tainted metal. Tainted metal refines to nanites at a ratio of 1 to 2 in the refiner. So each trip will get you roughly 900 metal, which is 1800 nanites, not counting all the living slime and modules that you found. And that about does it for my guide on how to get money and nanites from the early to mid-game in No Man's Sky. Now, I'm sure there's going to be at least a couple of comments saying, well, you left out this method of nanites or you left out that method of nanites, but again, I think I've included the best ones. I'm sure you could make more per hour if you were save scumming or cheesing the system somehow, but no matter what method of money or nanite accumulation you choose, my encouragement to you would be to try to weave it into your natural gameplay. No Man's Sky is a game about constantly growing and discovering, and if you reduce it to a grind and focus purely on the goal, then you lose sight of the journey that takes you from point A to point B. I hope you've enjoyed the second installment on my mini-series for new players jumping into No Man's Sky. In the next one, we're going to talk more about the mid to late game, different goals and different objectives that you can have. But until next time, take care.